Hello. So, we finished chapter 5, one of my most favorite chapters in literature ever, with the very intense and clever Cyclops scene. As I said in that video, chapter 5 and the episode, which is what it's called in the epic, the episode of the Cyclops, really helps us to see how Odysseus meets all of the requirements of a hero. If you remember the video we watched when we introduced the concept of the archetypal hero, we looked at the difference between, or we looked at two different types of heroes, right? The physical heroes, the brawny ones, right? The ones who use their strength and their muscles to overcome challenges. And then they also talked about the cerebral ones, right? The brainy ones, right? Your cerebellum is your brain. So Odysseus, right, is a blend of both of those types of heroes. He is strong and he's capable of massive feats of strength, but he is also incredibly smart, and he uses his intellect, he uses his guile, his cunning, his wit, his persuasive arts, right? The ability to speak and to persuade and to convince. And we see all of those strengths, both the physical and the cerebral strengths, in the episode with the Cyclops. So it's critically important. And that episode and text evidence from that chapter will be used in your final essay for the Odyssey. So make sure that you are really familiar with chapter 5. In chapter 5, we also talked about how we're keeping track now on our timeline, right, of the episodes that happen in the Wanderings. So the Wanderings are going to be chapters 5 through 8. That's where we're going to learn about this section of the timeline. So I'm trying to keep it straight for you. Okay, so we're over here now, and Odysseus, in real time, right, he's still over here. Right? He's still on the Isle of Phaeacia. He's still talking to the Phaeacians. But in flashback, he's all the way over here. He's just left Troy. And the first 1, 2, 3 spots on this section of the timeline are what he faces and where he goes in chapter 5. Right? The Cyclops is just one of them. You should have 3 of those lines filled in by now. And now in chapter 6, we're going to take a look at the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th lines in this section. And you want to be writing them in. You can do it above or below, but you want to be labeling what those stops are. So as we come to a new place or a new monster, right, or a new challenge, we're going to label that on that timeline. So chapter 6's title is The Witch Queen of Aeaea. We came next to the island of Aeolus, continued Odysseus. Right? It says continued because he's still in the middle of telling this story to all of the people in Phaeacia. Right? So again, we came next to the island of Aeolus, continued Odysseus. Zeus had made this king lord of the winds. Aeolus hosted me for a month. He asked for news of Troy and the Greek army. I told him the whole story. When I left, he gave me a sack. Inside were winds that blow in every direction. Aeolus tied the sack down inside my ship. He tied it shut with a cord and set the west wind free only to blow us home. He told us not to open the sack. But our own foolishness spoiled his plan. 9 days and nights we sailed. On the 10th, Ithaca came into sight. We could see fires on the beach. I fell asleep, tired from my work. And that was when the men began to mutter. They were sure that Aeolus' sack was full of gold. Look at our captain's luck, they said to one another. Everyone gives him treasure. We fought just as hard at Troy as he did. Hurry, let's see what's in the sack. They opened the sack. All the winds burst out. A sudden storm blew up and swept us back to sea. I woke up with a start. I knew at once what had happened. I thought of jumping over the side and drowning myself. But I chose to stay among the living. I hid my face from my crew as the wind blew us all the way back to Aeolus' island. The Wind Lord was amazed to see us again. Ashamed, I told him what had happened. "Help me again, my friend. You have the power." At first, our host was silent, and then he said, "Get away from this island! You get away from this island fast! You're the most cursed man alive, Odysseus. Look at you! How you come crawling back! Oh, the gods must hate you! Get out!" We left the island with a heavy heart. The men's spirits were broken. They had to row because there was no wind to sail by. We rowed for 6 days and nights. On the 7th day, we reached the Laestrygonians' land. My men rowed right into the harbor and tied up their ships. I alone kept my ship outside. I sent 3 men to find out who lived there. They were invited into the king's palace. His wife was as huge as a rock on top of a mountain. She called her husband the king. The king tore up one of my men for dinner. The other 2 escaped to the ships. The Laestrygonians came running. They were a race of giants. They threw rocks down the cliffs and smashed the ships to splinters. They speared the crews like fish. I pulled out my sword and cut the ropes that held my ship. "Row for your lives!" I shouted to my crew. We got clear of the cliffs and out to sea. My ship alone escaped. All the rest were sunk. Let that sink in. We were glad to escape death, but sick at heart for our friends. Next, we reached the island of Aeaea. This is the home of Circe, the nymph who speaks with a human voice. Circe is the lovely and powerful daughter of sun and ocean. We brought our ship into a harbor and rested for 2 days. On the 3rd day, I went to scout out the land. I killed a deer and brought it back to my men. Once they had eaten, their strength returned. "Listen," I said. "I saw smoke rising from somewhere at the heart of the island." This set the men to groaning. After the Cyclops and the Laestrygonians, who could blame them? I divided the men into 2 groups. I would lead one group. Eurylochus would lead the other. We drew lots from a helmet to see which group would set out first. The lot fell to Eurylochus. He led his men through the woods until they came to the palace. Wolves and lions roamed around Circe's walls. The men were terrified, but the animals did not attack them. Circe had tamed them with drugs. The men heard Circe singing inside as she worked at her loom. The house echoed her lovely song. The men called out and greeted her. Circe opened her doors and invited them in. Eurylochus alone stayed behind. He feared a trap. Circe invited the men to sit at a table. She gave them all food and wine, but into it she stirred an evil drug. It made them lose all memory of home. Once they had eaten, she hit them with a stick. They were pigs now, with snouts and grunts. Only their minds were still human. Circe herded them, squealing, into a pen. She fed them pig's food. Eurylochus ran back to our ship. We pressed him with questions, but it was a while before he could talk. "They all went in, Captain, but none came out. They all disappeared." I took my sword and bow. I headed through the woods towards Circe's hall. As I came near, Hermes crossed my path. "What are you doing here, unlucky man? Your men are all pigs in Circe's palace. Have you come to free them? You'll turn into a pig yourself." "Oh, wait, though. I have something for you. Take this plant. It will keep your mind clear when she casts her spell. When she hits you with her stick, draw your sword. Act like you're going to kill her. She will ask for mercy. She will tell you she loves you. Make her swear that she will do no more harm to you or to your men." Hermes pulled a plant from the ground and handed it to me. Then he flew away, back to Mount Olympus. My heart was a raging storm as I went up to Circe's hall. I stood outside and shouted to her. She opened the door at once and invited me in. She placed me in a kingly chair. and gave me her poison to drink. I drank it down, but its magic didn't work. She hit me with her stick and said, "Now, pig, off to your pen you go." Instead, I drew my sword. I rushed at her as if to kill her. She screamed, "Ah!" and dropped to her knees. "Who are you?" she cried. "No man has ever had power against my magic before." "You must be Odysseus. Hermes always said you would come. Put away your sword now. Stay with me and be my love." "Circe," I said, "how dare you speak of love? You turned my men into pigs. You would have done the same to me. Now, goddess, swear that you will do no more harm to me or to my men." So she swore, but I still would not eat or drink until she freed my men from her spell. I followed her out to the pen. The pigs stood facing us. She put a little oil on each of them with her stick, and they turned into men again. They seemed younger and stronger than before, and they all knew me at once. Each grasped my hands with joy. Circe stood there, watching, a beautiful goddess now. "Odysseus, king, Laertes' son," she said, "bring your ship up on my shore, store your gear and your treasures in my caves. Bring the rest of your crew here. You will stay with me for a while." So we did. My men were as happy to see me as if we had reached Ithaca. I brought them all to Circe's hall, where the feasting never ends. The men bathed and were given fresh clothes. The hall echoed with sounds of joy. "Royal Odysseus, man of action," said Circe, "I know what punishments the sea has given you. Stay with me now. Feast well. Drink my wine. Let your men become as strong as when you first left Ithaca. Let courage fill their chests again." So she won our spirits over, and we stayed there in comfort for a year. When summer came again, however, my men grew restless. "Captain, this is crazy," they said. "It's time you thought of your own home. If the gods really mean for you to reach your well-built house again." That night, I told Circe that we had to leave. Our hearts longed to be home. "I will not hold you against your will, Odysseus," Circe said. "But first, you must go on another journey. You must travel down to Erebus, the house of death. There you will speak with the ghost of Tiresias, the great blind seer, the seer of the city of Thebes. Even in death, he sees all. The rest of the dead are just empty shadows." Her words crushed my heart. "Circe, who can guide us on such a journey?" I asked. "Who has ever reached the land of death in a ship?" "Odysseus, you were born for great deeds," Circe answered. "You need no guide. Just spread your sail and let the north wind take you. Cross the world-embracing river. You will see the grove of the goddess Persephone. Beach your ship there, where the river Styx flows down to the house of death. Make offerings to the dead, milk and honey, and then wine, and then water. Sprinkle grain all over it. Promise the dead that when you reach Ithaca, you will make even greater offerings. Then kill a ram and a black ewe. Turn their heads toward Erebus. Have your men burn them and say prayers to the gods. The ghosts will swarm around you. Do not let them touch the sheep's blood until you have talked with Tiresias. He will tell you how you can reach home at last." With these words, dawn rose on her golden throne. Circe sent me on my way. I woke my men. I told them the course that Circe had set. It broke their hearts, but of course, their tears gained us nothing. Back to our swift ship we went. Circe had been there first. A ram and a black ewe were tied up close by. So, Odysseus, the great hero, like other great heroes in Greek mythology, right, like Orpheus, will make a journey to the underworld, and the test will be whether or not he returns. I will see you again for chapter 8. I'm lying. Chapter 7, In the House of the Dead. That's our next one. So those of you who wrote your journey to the underworld, we'll see how this one compares. Okay, see you soon.